Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Flick here, Chris Flick Podcast, episode number 74. All right, so today, it's Wednesday. It's the 21st of July. We got a big meeting tonight, and we have another big meeting on the 28th of this month, right? And what we're trying to do here is we have a horse farm. It's about 10 acres, and we're zoned out here for agriculture. But for me to have my business running here, we have a few things that we need to do here. We need to ask the township for a few variances, so to speak, in order for us to kind of accomplish some of the things we want to accomplish here. You know, at the end of the day, we want to be able to have a good, safe, fun environment for kids to work out in, right? I have a 3-year-old daughter. I imagine as she continues to get older, you know, she will be working out. She will be doing all kinds of different activities. Maybe there's some sports involved. She's going to have friends. We want to create an environment out here that's not only good for her, but all the other kids in the community here. A good, safe environment. You know, there's some scary statistics out there. 1 in 5 kids are obese. You know, kids aren't getting the recommended playtime. They're not even coming close to hitting the minimum recommended playtime. Too much time inside, not enough time outside. What we're trying to have here is this nice, big, wonderful plot of land here. Get outside, get training, teach the fundamentals, teach some of these priorities that might not be getting taught, you know, at school or in the classroom anymore. These physical literacy types of stuff, the balance, the strength, the running, the jumping, the climbing. Back in the day, this stuff was a part of the physical education curriculum. It's not really anymore. You know, some of the lessons that back in the day, you know, say one parent stayed at home. You know, basically what I'm getting at here, a lot of times now, just because of cost of living, both parents are working. They might not be around their parents as much as they used to be. That leaves a gap here. What are they doing with that time? Are they spending time in video games? Are they spending time chatting with friends online? Or are they spending time, you know, maybe playing a sport, doing an activity? What we're trying to provide here is for some kids that might need that little outlet. You know, the lessons learned through training, you know, the hard work, the delayed gratification, you know, taking 6 months just to climb a rope, putting in the work and realizing that if I work hard enough, I could accomplish some things I want to accomplish. That's what we want to do here. And, you know, I want to thank everybody out there. You know, we always need some people in our corner. People can get stuff done on their own, but at the end of the day, if you don't have somebody that has your back, if you don't have people in your corner, it makes life a little bit more difficult. All the people that have showed some support in our efforts to kind of get this thing moving, I want to thank you. Anybody else has, you know, if they want to shoot an email, if they want to kind of come out and show some support, just message me and I can give you the details on it. That's not the whole point of this conversation right here. I'm just saying this is a big day. Today's Wednesday. We get to meet and we get to discuss plans and see what we can and can't do moving forward. So, again, everybody that's been in our corner, thank you, right? Now, as I've been getting into a few things here, man, we're actually going to touch on some fitness topics, right? Who would have thought? A fitness coach here, strength and conditioning coach, he ends up talking about different books from like that cite Socrates and all this other crap, right? No, we're getting into some fitness stuff right off the bat. You know, I had a question here from a man, a good guy. He asked me, hey, I need to, you know, I want to get back in the habit of working out, man. I need help. My work schedule's draining me. I got no time, no energy to train. What could I do? Number one, we got to figure out, it's not about the perfect training program. What it is about, though, is creating that perfect or, you know, a really good habit, right? Because we might have had a good habit, but then all of a sudden this bad habit comes in and it negates our good habit. This good habit that we had, it doesn't just disappear. It's still there, but it's just that bad habit took over, right? So now what do we need to do? We need to come back with a stronger habit to override that negative bad habit. And if we don't do that, that negative bad habit's going to keep on showing up. So, you know, we can't just eliminate bad habits. They're still there. We just need to override it with new info, new download, so to speak here. So we need to download a new positive habit to override the past, you know, negative virus habit that we had before, right? So we have to do that. That's number one. It's not about picking the perfect plan. It's about getting up and getting out the door and getting moving. If your plan's a workout before work, get up, get out. Go for a 10-minute walk around the block. If you do that a few days, now we have a new habit started here. All right? You keep that up. Next time you might say, hey, on Fridays, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to the gym. Then I'm going to go to work because I got the weekend coming up and I can relax. Bam. Now you got one day working out. Once these habits get formed, once you get that ball rolling, it's like that snowball effect. They just keep building. It's compound, man. It's just one on top of the other, on top of the other. Next thing you know, you're back on track doing what you want to do. So keep this in mind. You know, when there is a bad habit in your life, try to incorporate a good habit to override that bad habit, right? Don't think about the perfect plan. Don't get caught up with perfect, okay? Just get caught up with doing, all right? Don't spend all these times and hours trying to figure out the greatest plan. And at the end of the day, your bad habit still rules your life. You know, don't let that happen. Just get up and get moving. Figure it out. 10 minutes a day. Walk around your block. Do something, but we got to get up and get outside. Okay? That's the hard part, is actually getting out the door. So what do we need to do? We need to practice that, right? In addition to that, we talked about don't get caught up with the perfect. I was listening to a few strength coaches talking here. Things like injuries, right? Things like, I'm trying to think of how this happened yesterday too. How this came up in a conversation about the horses. But anyhow, it's been a long time. We're smarter than we've ever been, so to speak, all right? We've been having ACL programs, ACL prevention programs and training for a long time. Over 10 years, 15 years, whatever. Guess what's going on here? ACL tears are on the rise. We know more about our health than ever, and our health is plummeting. What is going on there? I think it always kind of circles back to those habits, and it looks at our behavior as a whole. You could be on the greatest workout program for 45 minutes, right? But what about the other 23 hours and 15 minutes of the day? We have to look at behavior as a whole. The same with a diet. I'm on the paleo diet. All right, you're eating the same way in your mind as our ancestors did. But our ancestors went out and probably stalked, hunted, gathered, did all of that stuff. Their physical activity level was sky high. Sitting around at an office all day on a paleo diet, you might get some gains as it's like an anti-inflammatory type diet, right? You might drop some pounds, you might look a little leaner, but you're still not living that life that your Paleolithic ancestors did, all right? So we have to look at our behaviors as a whole. Just because you do the ACL prevention program doesn't mean you could be reckless in all the other stuff you do. We have to keep that in mind, right? Behavior as a whole. I'll probably say it 5 times here. Just because you follow a diet, just because you follow a diet to the T, doesn't mean that it gives you free pass to not do all of the other stuff that kind of goes along with healthy lifestyle, stress mitigation, getting a good night's rest, right? Imagine if you only slept 2 hours a night, but you followed a great diet. Do you think you're going to get the gains you want to? No. Behavior as a whole. All of these things, man, everything that we do in life is multifactorial, all right? It's all multifactorial. So when we think about this stuff, we can't just get caught up with perfect. We need to have that whole, the holistic approach to our behavior and when we're trying to make a change, all right? So that was one thing. When we do talk about behavior change, now we need to figure out what's actually going to work. If I say the new year hits, right, and I cut my calories because I want to lose weight and I start working out, those two things are huge changes. And if you do have some gains, are you going to be able to realize if you make improvements, is it because of the workout program or is it because of the diet? So now you're going to restrict your calories and increase your, energy output, right? Those two behaviors right there can set you up for some metabolic issues potentially, right? So you have to be mindful with what you do. Maybe you introduce the behavior change of eating better, all right? That's fair enough. You're probably going to see some good results. And then maybe you introduce that workout once a week, something like that. But if you do too much, if you do them both at the same time, your body's going to wonder what in the world is going on here because they're shocking yourself with 2 totally new behavior changes, right? You're kind of totally throwing your body for a loop. And in addition to that, you don't even know what variable is actually getting you the improvements. So we have to keep that in mind when we take on a change. Keep them small and keep them incremental, and those are going to be the changes that last a lifetime, all right? So moving on here now. A guy by the name of Benjamin Franklin. You ever hear of him? I'm listening to a book, White Trash, right? The title's controversial, man. The historian wrote the book, Nancy Eisenberg. I got this as a gift, and I made a joke in our newsletter like, man, I'm hoping the gift giver didn't hint at me being, the name of that book, right? White trash, so to speak. But in this book, Benjamin Franklin, he's looking at society as a whole. This book touches on, class system in America, right? The 400 years of different classes, so to speak. All right, you have the super wealthy, you have the poor, you have the race differences, right? You have women, all of these different class structures, okay? People from the south, people from the north, people from this town, people from that town, all these different things going on here. And Benjamin Franklin, in his opinion, he looked at it in 2 things, right? He said for these kids, not not for kids, just for society. There needs to be decadence, and there needs to be a certain amount of pain, and that balance needs to be in check, right? If we provide our kids with too much decadence, they're not going to get those hard lessons that we might have learned growing up. I think back to a story about Kenyan marathoner, and they asked him basically, like, it was in the book The Sports Gene, where you look at genetics, right? And this child had great genes, right? They asked the Olympic marathon gold medalist, hey, do you think your kid is going to be an Olympic marathoner? And he was like, there's no chance, man. This kid gets driven to school every day. He gets good, healthy, he eats too much, He's got too much good things going on that he doesn't understand the struggle. He doesn't understand the work ethic and all that stuff. There was no way for that man to replicate that, that struggle, that pain in his kid's life in the way that he had it. Therefore, it was going to be hard for that kid to have that work ethic that his father had, right? Too much decadence in that kid's life. On the flip side, too much pain. I think I'm not following current events like some others out there, but I see generations of pain occurring in a country like Cuba, where people are hungry, people are poor, people are deprived of all of these different liberties here. And now you're at this point here, too much pain in their life created some resistance, and that resistance is kind of playing out now in the national news. Okay, so too much pain, you might oppress somebody else. You might end up getting some pushback, some resistance from that individual. All right, you're not gonna, as a society, that's not what you want. Also, as a society, you don't want too much decadence. I think it was in Bob Hoffman's book when I did that podcast, a few weeks ago when I broke it down. Civilization collapses when people don't have to work hard for what they get, right? Some of these great empires of years past, if they had slaves build their buildings, if they had they paid people to fight their wars, eventually that led to their collapse, right? Because they almost didn't have skin in the game. They also they were living a life of luxury, just kind of sitting back and not battling on the front lines, So Franklin talked about this, I think it was in the 1760s, right? The perfect balance between decadence and pain. As a parent, as a coach, as whatever it may be. I mean, Tom Brady's coach, I remember saying, if I have a kid show up here as high school coach, he said, if there's a kid that comes in here and his home life is a bunch of shit, I give that kid some ice cream with the way I coach him. And then the flip side, if that kid just lives a life of luxury and he's getting served ice cream up all day, every day, then I have to give him a little bit of shit to kind of balance that out. And I think that's what's important about being a parent, about being a coach, is we have to find that right balance. If I'm somebody that makes a hell of a living, I'm not hating on you, man. Congratulations. Your big challenge as a parent now is to try to have your children understand what went into you making that amount of money for your life and for your career. If you live that life of luxury, man, too much decadence, it's going to be hard for those kids to kind of overcome that and develop some sort of work ethic. They unfortunately might feel like they are entitled to something, right? Everybody likes to use that word, but at the end of the day, as a coach and a parent, we got to make sure that our kids are staying on track, right? So I think that's super important. And when we talk about stuff like this, we can kind of apply these same concepts, the pain, the decadence, to how we handle everything in life, right? There needs to be a certain balance with how we handle all these interpersonal relationships, all right? Benjamin Franklin was on it a long, long, long time ago, and I think these lessons still apply today. Stuff that we can't forget, right, as a society. So moving on here now, that was what I was listening to, a little book called White Trash, and in that too, just this morning when I was listening to it, our country had just a really messed up history. Now we all know the big ones, right? But there was stuff like in the 1920s, most states had sterilization laws, so the people that they deemed inadequate to reproduce, they treated these people like livestock, horses, cattle, whatever you want to be. They wanted to have the best in show, right? They wanted to be the prettiest people, the people that have their lives together, so to speak. They didn't want those poor individuals reproducing because they thought it would bring down society. Eugenics is what we're talking about here, all right? They had sterilization programs in this country, less than 100 years ago. I didn't know that. I think it's shocking. I think it's crazy. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt was, a supporter of eugenics, so to speak, and Margaret Sanger. There's a lot of big names, really prominent people in our history that were in support of this stuff, and I find it very odd and crazy. But anyhow, White Trash is a good book. It was written in 2016. I even feel in the last 4 or 5 years now, a lot has changed in our country here. And some of these truths that I kind of talked about, there are some truths in this book that have lasted the hundreds of years that people have inhabited this area. But There's some crazy stuff going on out there, and I think books like this need to be written a little bit of controversy, a little bit of not afraid to speak about what actually happened, right? We need books like this. We need people to speak up and when things like this are going on, right? And we need to, have the ability to think on our own. We need to be able to take in information like this and be like, holy crap, that's messed up, and then create our own thoughts on it, right? And Socrates, man, we're going back, and we're going to quote the great man from 400 BC, I believe. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think, right? That's what Socrates said, right? So all of this stuff that we take in, that we consume, if it doesn't make us think, if it doesn't allow us to kind of come up with things on our own here, then what are we really doing? We're just kind of floating our way through life without really, spending time in deep thought. And, I think that's a mistake. I think we need to read controversial stuff. We need to take a look at some things that happened in the past and try to formulate our own thoughts on it and try to prevent some of these evils that may have occurred or things that we don't agree with. The only way that we are going to be able to prevent them from occurring is if we know about them, right? So, we have to keep it all in mind with whatever we're consuming, okay? And then we need to play the long game too with a lot of this stuff, and we need to test certain things out. I'm just glad that certain things like this, like these sterilization programs, it appeared that they went out, but then they realized the depression hit in the late 20s, and I think things started changing a little bit after that. But they realized maybe this isn't the best approach, and then some laws went into play that kind of, they tested it out, they realized it didn't work, and then they made the proper adjustment, is what I'm thinking is what happened. Was it as that cut and dry? Probably not, but they decided that wasn't the right solution for the long game. And even circling back to some of that stuff that we talked about earlier, when you introduce new habits, right, you got to be in it for the long game, and you have to be a personal test dummy with everything that you do. If you want to join a religion, you got to test out a few and see what fits. If you're trying to change your life for the better in terms of your health and wellness, test out a few things. If you could go to yoga twice a week and eat better, that's better than doing nothing, right? So you got to find out what fits with you. All right, you got to test it out. It's got to be a personal decision. All of these things, whether it's ideas, whether it's habits, whether it's relationships, anything like that, we have to test them out. We have to make these incremental changes so we can fully understand what's going on, and then be in it for the long game. All right. Looking at all this stuff here, I just got to figure out. I got to figure out one more thing here, guys and girls. I work in that strength and conditioning community, and when I talk about formulating opinions, I think it's super important. We need to, as coaches, we need to read what occurred. We need to read the history on some things, right? We need to see, hey, other people tested this out. How am I going to apply this? And when I do apply it, I need to learn from that, right? I'm not saying you try every gadget out there. I saw something this week. I see parachutes. I see a bunch of. This is not a knock on them. They're just not trained. I see a high school girls soccer team using parachutes and using different stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, you want to get these girls faster? They need to get their strength levels up, and they need to sprint. That's it. All right? If you could create a stronger body, a stronger pillar, and then a stronger lower half, especially in the back side, the hamstrings and the glutes. And if you could create some stiffness in the core, a really strong pillar, and then build up those hamstrings and glutes, and then you get out there and you do some sprints, you're going to be faster. You don't need all these gadgets. I think it's a big problem. I think about, what are the best people doing? Do you think, nothing is wasted when it comes to being an elite athlete, we'll say. And I'm not saying this as somebody that's been there. I'm saying it as somebody that kind of studies it and reads about it. Everything it's super meticulous, and it's super thorough with whatever the preparation may be. And they're not going to waste time using parachutes and stuff if it's not going to make them a hair faster. All right. So we need to think about this stuff when we go on and embark and we test out new things. If you want to have some fun, that's fine. But if you're looking for some measurable data, if you're looking for something measurable to improve upon, you're going to have to go back to the bread and butter, man. You got to go back to what's been working for decades, and it's boosting strength and it's running fast. This most obvious comment in the world that I tell some kids when we're supposed to be sprinting at football practice, we're doing 20-yard sprints. We're doing 8 of them, right? And then we're going to take a break, then we're going to do another 8. what we're trying to do is build up a little bit of endurance so we could, we're trying to work on our speed, 20-yard speed, but also have some endurance that we could repeat that behavior over and over and over again with not minimal rest, but with adequate rest for what their sport demands. Kids are coasting, and I'm like, dude, you got to get moving. He's like, one kid goes, I don't feel like running fast. And then when we get into the weight room later, I didn't call him out. I didn't make a big stink about it, but we get in the weight room, and I'm like, hey, dude, like, you're here. It's 8 in the morning. You showed up here. You're doing the drills. Like, why don't you want to run fast? He's like, oh, I just wasn't feeling like it. And I'm like, well, here's what's going to happen, all right? Do you want to get faster? He said, he gave me like a yeah, like not like a confident yes, but he said yes. But I'm like, all right, here's what's going to happen. You're either going to, if you want to get faster, you're going to have to like go all out in these drills. You actually have to run hard. You're not just going to wake up one day and be faster, unless, of course, you hit puberty and that might occur, right? But anyway, I'm like, dude, you got to run hard if you want to be faster. If you don't want to get faster, if you just want to kind of be here, then you can do that stuff, right? But you just got to understand that if you're not going to put in any kind of work, you're not going to see any kind of improvement. And that's that. And I left it at that. Next time he came in here, and I think we got a little bit more effort, right? So luckily in that situation, that kid responded to it. Fast forward, next day, right? Some kid's in the weight room. He doesn't want to lift weights, he says. I'm like, why are you even in here then? You just want to talk with your friends? Then you got to leave, basically. That's like this is not a social hour. We're training as a team. We're pumping iron. Some guys are going to do conditioning. Other guys are doing football stuff. Then you're out the door, right? This isn't I go to a Max Fitness. I work with somebody else. That's not what we're doing here. We're training as a team, right? And if you want to do that stuff, fine. But just don't come in here and try to, bring that negative energy into the weight room, right? Because we don't need it. Anyhow, how did I get on this tangent? Who knows? If you're a kid, if you're training kids, we got to focus on some fundamentals. We got to build a strong core. We got to start sprinting. We got to sprint up hills, sprint straight, sprint different distances. We have to sprint as hard as we can when we're running, and then we recover, and then you repeat that again. You want to get faster, that's what you got to do. If you want to get faster, we're talking about force, right? Force, mass, times acceleration. If my body mass is the same and I can accelerate faster, my force number is going to be higher. Force number is going to equate to a higher force number is going to equate to the potential for greater speed. If I'm able to stay the same size but build my strength up, I should, in theory, be able to run faster if I'm training to run, right? If I'm just a power lifter that doesn't run, I might not be able to get there, right? I need to actually get out there and do the activity. So if you want to get faster, we need to get strength up in the lower half. We need to get strength up, period. We need to get a strong, stable pillar, a strong, stable core, and we need to run fast. I'm trying to see what else I missed on my checklist here. Behavior as a whole. We got to remember everything matters, right? Sleep, relationships, what we consume as drinks, whether or not we eat vegetables, all of this stuff matters. I can't just don't get caught up with finding the perfect workout plan. We got to be on point in just about everything in life, right? So we're looking at behavior as a whole. We're looking at new habits overriding bad habits. We need to create the habit, right? If we have a bad habit, we need to put something in play here that's going to override that bad habit with a great habit, all right? What I've been listening to, White Trash, Nancy Eisenberg, good book. Hard lessons that we experience in this country, right? So how do we overcome these potentially bad things that happen over the course of history? We learn about it, we try to understand it from both sides, and then we move past it and try never to repeat something like that again. Forgot one thing. I'm reading in Queen's Gambit. If you haven't seen that Netflix series, check it out. Beth Harmon, one of my favorite characters ever. She's super snarky, super sassy, chess prodigy, troubled life from the get-go. Great character, though. Watch a Queen's Gambit on Netflix. I'm reading the book. The book is great, too. All right? One last closing thought. I heard this quote this week, and I like it. I don't work out. I work it out. No matter what you have going on in life, there's one positive thing that you could do. You could get up and get your body moving. No matter what mental state you're in, all right? No matter what your mental state is, physical activity is going to help, all right? Just get out and do something. Go pick up a few rocks and move them across your yard. I don't care. Load up a wheelbarrow and take it for a ride somewhere, man. Push that thing down and back. Walk around your block. Walk around your block 5 times. I don't really care. Just get moving until you feel better. All right? It's going to happen. All right? I don't work out. I work it out. If you got problems, work it out. All right? Hope you guys like this episode. Stay tuned, everybody. Might have a guest on the next one. Might be doing our part 2 with Stevie Rose. Last week we had to cancel. Stupid scheduling issue on my fault. But we should be back in action this week. Peace, everybody.